It's interesting. Just as you said that, I'm like thinking about change, right? Thinking about the change in seasons, thinking about the change to flipping the calendar to fourth quarter this week,
Hmm.
thinking about planning for next year and where we're headed and what the strategy is from that, both from a personal perspective, from a business perspective. Like this is the perfect time to really freaking put the pedal to the metal, man, on both sides.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grit Meets Growth podcast, where we bring you inspiration and insights focused on getting uncomfortable, making things happen, and creating a magnetic life. If you enjoy the messages you're hearing here, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of the podcast. With that, let's get after it.
Oh, happy days.
Happy days. What's on your mind today, man?
Well, the weather took a massive turn. It's turned into my favorite time of year. It's finally fall.
Are you wrapping up bike season at this point? How does that roll out in the fall?
I ride till the snow flies. Now, once the salt goes down on the roads, I'm done. And typically that entails, it's got to be a consistent temperature over 45. Like if it's 45 starting out in the morning, or at least going to be 45 for the majority of the day, even if it's a little colder than that, I'm in. I'll still ride.
Yeah, I would imagine this is one of the best seasons to ride in.
Love it. It's gorgeous. We spent a lot of time on the bike this weekend. The colors aren't quite really changing yet. They're starting, but it's still pretty early, I think.
When they do change, this ends up being one of the best places in the world to be.
Yeah,
There's nothing like it.
I agree. It's interesting. Just as you said that, I'm like thinking about change, right? Thinking about the change in seasons, thinking about the change to flipping the calendar to fourth quarter this week,
Hmm.
thinking about planning for next year and where we're headed and what the strategy is from that, both from a personal perspective, from a business perspective. Like this is the perfect time to really freaking put the pedal to the metal, man, on both sides. I'm back into consistency in the gym. Again, switch flipped, and I'm like, screw it, let's get this going. Right. And again, it comes back to that discipline. Right. We've talked about that a lot. Discipline is the foundation of that. And I want to kind of get into that a little bit here today, further, and how discipline can apply to many facets of our life. And why wait, right? Like on a personal level, on a business level, right? Everybody's looking at beginning of the year to implement change. Why wait? What's stopping it from doing it today? Make the change, get out in front, get ahead. Right?
This
You're already a lap or two in by the time people finally decide to make a decision. Like you're outpacing them. They can't catch you at that point. You're going to change, right? You're going to make those changes in your personal life. Your old self won't be able to catch you because you're already way gone.
this is the time of year to go, man. Like, I think this is the time of year where you're gonna see, like, things are hot right now. We've talked about it. September, October, things get hot, and all the stuff you didn't do over the summer, you're gonna accelerate through some of that. By the time you hit middle of November, everyone's back off the gas. They're gonna slow down, foot on the brake. I'm gonna coast through the end of the year. If you decide you're gonna buckle down over last quarter and you're gonna really get after it, this is your opportunity to make some gains that other people are not going to make because you were focused on it, you did the work, and you didn't let off the gas.
And there's also relationships. Now is the time to really focus on relationships. Focus on those personal relationships so that you're set up in that November, December timeframe when everybody wants to just quote unquote spread holiday cheer, that you've got the relationships that you can go to and build upon and again propel yourself forward into the next year. If you're waiting till January to start building relationships and fostering and strengthening those relationships, again, you're behind the eight ball, man.
Hit on this topic of discipline, because I think discipline is the key. Like we've said, discipline is freedom. Dig into that a little bit.
What do most people want? They want freedom, right? If we summarize it up, as Americans, freedom is really spoken about a lot. It's what all of us seek. Freedom in our lives, freedom in our career, freedom in our health, freedom in our finances, freedom in our relationships, right? If we look at those four areas, I know for sure those are four areas that I want freedom in. Let's talk about career. Let's dig into that one for a second. And I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm going, oh man, how am I going to talk about freedom in career? What's an example of that? Well, you lived through that example. I've lived through that example, right? In starting our own business. And the discipline that it takes and the effort that you have to put in order to do that, but the freedom that it gives you to make your own decisions and not be working for somebody else, right? I also thought about an author, right? If you want to write a book and you're an aspiring writer and you want to have the freedom to publish your own novel, you've got to have the discipline to write consistently. You have to do that every single day, and that will bring you that freedom. Committing to a writing schedule, committing to a daily word count target, committing to, improving your craft, whatever that happens to be. Right. For me on the sales side, it's really about having consistent of outreaches and consistently being in front of people and consistently going to events and meeting new folks and talking further with other folks that you've met before and putting yourself out there. You have to have the discipline in order to do that, in order to give you that freedom of your career. Thoughts?
I'm going to just tag onto that. No one's going to do the work for you. All right, there's a Mel Robbins video where she talks about this. No one's coming to save you. No one's going to do the work for you. And I think that's the key. Like there's a segment of the population who wants somebody else to do the work for them, and they're going to ride on the coattails. I remember you were talking a little bit about the entrepreneur journey and where discipline falls into that and freedom. And part of my journey was the company that I worked for prior to Orange Ball. We had an awesome team. We worked hard, and I gave everything to that company. I mean, every hour that I could give, I gave over and above. And it got to the point where they took care of us for a long time. And then the year came where Christmas bonuses or holiday bonuses weren't a thing. And with no warning, the bonuses dried up and they didn't exist. And so all of that work that you had done went unrecognized. And I remember the year that happened, I felt really taken advantage of. And I know that there are seasons where companies can't do bonuses. That's not where I'm going with this, but it was no communication, none of that. And all of a sudden it was just not a thing anymore. And I looked back on all of the hours that I had put into that company and put into my team that year. And when that moment came, I realized I wasn't in control, that I was not in control of my own destiny. Somebody else owned me. And as much as I thought I had freedom, and there were glimmers of it here and there, I really didn't have freedom. I didn't have the freedom to treat my employees the way I wanted to all the time. I had an awesome team. And when it came time to do reviews, what I heard from HR was, now somebody's going to be a 4. You can have this many 2s, and you have to make this many people 1s. And I didn't have 1s on my team. I didn't have 2s on my team. I had awesome people on my team, but they wanted me to put them in segments according to some formula. It was those kinds of things where I didn't have freedom. And that was kind of the game changer for me, is all of a sudden I realized I wanted the freedom and I didn't want somebody else to really control my destiny, not like that. And it was time for a move. And that's kind of what led down the path. So you make the spin and you own your own business and you're like, oh, I'm going to have all the freedom in the world. I can do whatever I want. You can't. You have to be disciplined. You're free to create your own results. You have a lot of freedom as an owner and an operator, but that doesn't mean you don't have to be disciplined and you don't have to do the small things every day. Like you're talking about on the sales side. I got to make a certain number of calls. And if I don't go make the calls, nobody's going to make them for me. So the discipline, you're free to do a lot of things, but you have to be disciplined. It's a both and. And I think we want one or the other. It's both and for sure.
Yeah. Discipline is doing the things you hate to do, but doing them anyway. You know, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur, right? And that's not what we're suggesting is like, if you're not getting that in your job, you need to go do this, right? But think about in your career where there are opportunities for freedom. What does that freedom mean to you? How do you embrace that? How do you put the discipline around that to ensure that you're happy in your career, that the company that you work for is happy, that your spouse is happy, that your kids are happy, that your relationship with your friends still thrive, right? You have to spread the love around a little bit. And the only way you can do that is through having the discipline put into place and consistently doing those things.
I even look at how we treat our employees, and hopefully if they listen to this, hopefully they would agree with this, but I feel like we give them a fair amount of freedom, but with that, there's an expectation that they're going to be disciplined. Absolutely. They can have more freedom the more disciplined they are. Because now if they're disciplined, I can trust the effort and I can say, I know you're going to do this. I know you're disciplined in how you show up. I can open more doors for you to do what you want to do. The two go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And we take that same philosophy here.
The thing that I think is interesting about today is there's a lot of conversations about like the just the unexpected and the uncertainty and all of the chaos in the world, and all the stuff that's going on. Like we're in uncertain times. And I hear this all the time. And I think it's interesting because every time I hear it, I wonder if there's ever been a time where things weren't uncertain.
Right.
Like I feel like it's uncertain all the time. It's easy to look at the world pre-COVID and be like, those were certain times, and then COVID hit and there was a lot of chaos and uncertainty. And I get that. But I feel like it's been uncertain forever.
There's always going to be uncertainty. It's in our minds and in our ability, in the things and the actions and the things that we do that remove that uncertainty. Forget about what the general public is talking about and focus on the changes that you can make in your area, in your business, in your personal life, in your relationships. And focus on that. And I guarantee you, all that other noise goes away. And the uncertainty level goes away because you're learning to navigate through it.
I think it's control what you can control.
Right.
Like there's a ton of stuff that I can't control. There's a ton that I can. I can control how I show up. I go back to the discipline. I can control how disciplined I am in a lot of areas in my life, which will help eliminate uncertainty. I can control where I spend my time and what I feed myself. And I'm not even just talking like physically feed myself, but we've had a lot of conversations about what do you feed yourself during the day? You read the newspaper? Do you spend time online checking out CNN? Do you watch the news at night? I mean, I think
you do the death scroll on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah. I think about the time that I've spent watching TV. I'll even just take it personally over the last week. If I do an assessment over the time I've spent with the TV on in my house, and it's on from time to time, I can't think of one time where I was like, that made me feel better. Like a lot of what I've seen. I mean, so I watched Twins baseball the other day. Maybe that made me feel a little bit better. That was fun, right? But the majority of the other stuff that I watched, when I got up from watching TV, I felt worse. And that's one of those things we can control, what we feed ourselves.
Which is really a good segue into creating freedom in our health. We all want to be healthy, right? I mean, don't we all ultimately seek to be healthy? Do we get off derailed on that from time to time? Are there choices that are made that drive down a path? Absolutely. But do we all have it in ourselves to get back to a healthy, robust body? Absolutely. It's like anything, right? If you put the discipline and the effort into it, you can make change. We got to earn it though, right? Just as you said earlier with our career, it's no different, right? You have to put the work in. You got to go climb the hill. You got to hit the gym. You got to get on the bike. You got to go for a walk. And as I'm saying that, I'm like, well, we don't have to. We don't got to do anything. I get to do that. Right? I guess having that philosophy change and that one word change, I get to go do that. I get to exercise regularly. I get to balance my diet. I get to get sufficient sleep. I get to go to a doctor that I trust and that I can talk with and work with on my health and treatment should I need it. I get to do all those things. And I get to create the discipline around those so that I end up with a healthy, robust body that I can live life to its fullest, that I can play in the yard with my kids, that hopefully I get an opportunity to have grandkids someday, and I'm going to have enough mobility and health to be able to play with those grandkids and run around.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and he put it like this. He's like, as long as I can, in over the course of my life, continue to make forward progress, I'm going to do it. Because there's going to come a time, you and I are going to get older. Eventually, we're going to plateau out. But I don't think either one of us are there yet. We have the opportunity in front of us to keep this forward progress, to get stronger, to get more physically active, to become the men we want to be. We haven't plateaued yet. So then we have the opportunity and the choice to make. Are we going to do the work to continue to strengthen ourselves? As long as we have the opportunity in front of us, why not?
I talked about my dad, 73 years old, goes to the gym 3 days a week.
He's
Still,
bad A.
What's that?
He's bad A.
Right. He's still putting in the work. I saw a video, Tom Platz, former bodybuilder, 65 years old, still working out every day. He's like, that's my life. That's my church. That's where I go to work on the things that need to be done. He says, yeah, I did legs over the weekend. It's Wednesday and I still can't walk. What am I doing? I'm 65 years old, right? But that's what you do. If you want the freedom, if you want the ability to live a long life of free from pain and suffering, then you got to put a little pain and suffering in the gym or on the street walking or whatever that form of exercise that you're doing, right? Finances. We all want freedom in finances, right? And of course, with where we're at currently in the world, people go, how are we ever going to have freedom in finances? We all want to make those choices that aren't dictated by some financial constraint. And it's about making those right decisions, right? It's about having the discipline to make the right decisions. Spending wisely, spending your money where you really need to spend the money and not frivolously on stuff that you don't necessarily need, right? Just to keep up with the Joneses, right? Making sure that you're paying yourself first, whatever way, shape, or form that is, whether it's in a savings account or some sort of, life insurance policy, whatever it happens to be, right? Pay yourself first. Make sure you're investing wisely. Have the right folks in your corner that help you do those. If that's not where a knowledge area that you have, then seek those folks out to help you decide that. And be smart about where you're spending, right? We have a lot of choice in where we can spend money today. Spend your money with the people that and the organizations that have similar mindset to you. As a small business owner, I'd encourage you to seek out the small business. Spend the money there. Tell them you appreciate them. In the end, the discipline of managing that money efficiently and effectively gives you the freedom to enjoy the things that you want to enjoy. Gives you the ability to enjoy them today and into the future. Uncertainty aside, do the work.
I'm going to go back to something you said there, and you hit on it maybe a couple of times, even how we spend our money. How often do people get stuck spending money on dumb stuff because they're worried about what somebody else is going to think? Their neighbor, some stranger that they don't even know, somebody they work with, like, I'm going to buy this because I think this person's going to think I'm cool or like me better if I have this. Like, we buy stuff to appease people we don't even know, for not because we want it, but because we think somebody else wants it for us. Like, those buying decisions, I've had a lot of conversations about money lately, and I think people's relationships with money are really interesting. But we don't like to talk about it. Most of us would rather talk about sex than money, or like pick any other uncomfortable topic. We don't want to talk about money because it's weird. But our relationship to it, your money is a tool. Every dollar you have is a tool, and you get to decide what you want to do with that tool, what you want to build with that tool, what you want to create with that tool. A lot of people chase money for the sake of chasing money. Not probably the best idea in the world. If you get money and then you use it as a tool to go get the things in your life that matter to you, that you value, that you want, that's how you should be spending it, based on the things that you value and you want.
Right. What's your freedom? Right? What is your freedom? You choose that. What do you want that to look like? And then you back into it on these things, right? It's no different than we talk about from a goal setting perspective. Set that ultimate goal and then work backwards into the steps that you need to take to achieve it. It's the same thing from a money perspective. What is that goal? What's that freedom that I ultimately want?
You back into it. If you want to retire with $1 million and you spend every dollar you're making right now, it's not going to happen. You have to back into it and say, okay, this is what I want to retire with. I'm going to back into it. I'm going to create a plan backward to get to where I want to go tomorrow. That's anything in life.
We live in a time where the possibilities are endless. The ability for individuals to make money has never been greater. They exist. Whatever it is that you want to do to earn money, to create that freedom, exists. You just have to look for it. And you have to decide for yourself what you want to do. I think this fourth one is probably, for me, the most important. Relationships. In business, those relationships, they're our lifeblood. Without relationships, without customers, we have nothing. All we have is ideas. If we don't foster those relationships with those clients, we have to spend that effort and that money and that time to get new ones, right? focusing on retention of those customers, focusing on the value that you're providing to them is key. And I think that we can transcend that right into our personal lives, right? We talk about being givers. We talk about go-giving, right? And we talk about how providing value in every conversation that we have is the key to success. If we desire the freedom of having fulfilling, meaningful relationships, we have to have the discipline to communicate openly, to listen with empathy, to be patient, and to compromise when necessary.
Read that list again.
In order to have meaningful relationships, it requires the discipline to communicate openly, listen with empathy, to be patient, and to compromise when necessary. And I'd add a fifth in there as we're talking, to add value to the conversation.
That's a powerhouse list, man.
And by doing that, we have the freedom of relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding. It's not this fake BS out there that so many people are living in, or having only online relationships and not connecting face to face with people.
There's a thing that Earl Nightingale talks about, and it has to do with taking every person you meet and treating them like they're the most important person in the world. Like if I'm talking to you for like right in this moment, you're the most important person in the world. And if I treat you that way, with that level of respect and that level of intention and listening, and I'm like locked in because I feel like you are the most important person in the world right now, you will feel that energy will flow back and forth, and you build really solid relationships when you do that. And that's what we all want. We want to feel seen. We want to feel heard. We want to feel valued. If the person we're talking to and communicating with shows us that, you create big connections that way.
Having a conversation yesterday, new person that I just met at a networking event. Talked about what each one of us does, right? Talked about Octelliant, what we do. He's like, oh, he says, I'm gonna think about opportunities where I can make an introduction for you. And I said, well, I really appreciate that, but I said that's not my goal today. He looked at me like, what? I said, my goal is just to empower you to have better conversations with your customers about security. Well, that's different, right? That's the difference. You're giving versus being a taker. So many people are takers. They go into every conversation wanting something from it. Why don't you flip that paradigm around? Go into those conversations giving something, giving a piece of information, helping that person out. I guarantee you, the more you give, the more you get in return. And your returns are fivefold because they cover so many different things, right? They cover all of these areas. When you do it right, they cover your career, they cover your health, they cover your finances, they cover those relationships all at once. Powerful stuff.
And they all point back to discipline. Every one of those areas, if you're disciplined in every one of those areas, you will reap rewards in every one of those areas.
We've said this before. People think of discipline as a bad word. Think of it as the structure that gives shape to your freedom. Go get uncomfortable. Get out of your current shell. Get out of your current circle if it's not working for you, and go create a new one of relationships, and go give to people. That will give you the foundation of freedom.
I think one of the things to think about too as we wrap here is, what are those areas in your life right now where you know that you're not as disciplined as you should be, or you could be, or you want to be? Like, have an honest, hard conversation with yourself. wrestle that down to the ground and really dig through that, because we all have a spot where we know if I were more disciplined in this area, my results would change.
For sure.
That honest conversation can be hard to have, but when you do that, and then you start to take action and you start to address those areas and you start to get disciplined, what you see on the other side of that's going to be amazing. And I'm going to circle back to where we started. Do not wait to do that until January 1st. Do it now. Have that conversation with yourself now. Do it now and start to make those tweaks and those changes. Start to implement that discipline today.
Yep. You want an advantage over everybody else in your life? Start today. It's that simple. That's it, man. Go find yourself some freedom. Get after it and make it a great day.
Another awesome conversation, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
That wraps it up for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the Grit Meets Growth tribe. And thanks for growing along with us and being part of this journey together. If you know someone who needs to hear the conversation we had today, please share it. If you got something out of this conversation, please leave us a review. And finally, if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, just remember to subscribe. We're thankful for each and every one of you. And as my co-host and good friend Chris Cathers always says, make it a great day.